Minister was among several who were at an event that was hosted by the Australian and Sky News on Friday in Sydney. It was all about the role of the economy and about the future when it comes to the country, particularly as we're dealing with the cost of living. But despite the fact that the event was broadcast on this channel, he couldn't find it within himself to not go after the people he doesn't like, including this program and me.
Well, as much as I love Sky News during the day, before weird stuff happens as the dark comes down, I've got to say.
Weird stuff, like all that data that we show you, all those uncomfortable truths that we speak, and all that accountability that we bring to the Prime Minister. Well, of course, while he was there, he decided to practice the favourite political sport of changing the subject from the performance of his own government and the economic ruin that has happened in the first 12 months of him being in there. Yet again, saying it's all the Reserve Bank's fault.
Why did the budget predict the cash rate to stay at 3.85%? I mean, it's wrong a month later.
Well, that's a question for the Treasury Department, and I'm sure Mr Kennedy will be able to answer that. That's not the only prediction on interest rates that have not been correct. It's not as incorrect as the one saying there'd be no increases till 2024. So these things are all relative.
So when we're talking about relative predictions that are also wrong, what about reducing power bills?
Get power prices down by $275 a year.
$275 a year. $275 a year.
What about nurses in every nursing home in the country from the 1st of July?
24/7 nurses. 24/7 nurses. 24/7. 24/7 nurses. Nurses 24/7. 24/7 nurses. 24/7. Nurse in a nursing home 24/7. 24/7. Put the nurses back in the nursing homes 24/7.
Yeah, all that weird stuff that happens at night time here on Sky News. And what about that promise that a Labor government will lower the cost of living? Something that we've shown you almost every night because we're the only ones who actually remember. A Labor government will lower the cost of living, but by every indices it is worse 12 months after that government took over. Well, the good news just keeps on coming, where apparently the wonderful management of the economy by the greatest treasurer and greatest Prime Minister of all time is apparently going to lead to even more interest rate rises. Already Australians are having to find the best part of $15,000 a year on top of what they were paying last year to pay off their houses. Nothing to see here. And there's chances it could get a 5 in front of it sooner rather than later. But every now and then there's pesky data that we bring up here in that crazy time on Sky News that also disproves some of the claims that were made during the election campaign and the many, many years before that about what the Labor Party thought were examples of an economy where people were hurting. For example, the number of people who have more than one job to survive.
I think in those employment figures as well, you have to look at the fact that, for example, about 500,000 Australians are working 3 jobs.
Well, guess what? According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, that far right-wing think tank that we quote so often here in the scary time of night for the Prime Minister, the number of people holding more than one job is at a record high. The number of people holding multiple jobs has now reached 947,000 people. 19,000 people more than in the December quarter. And how's this? 173,000 people more than before the pandemic, because people need more than one job to pay for the cost of living consequences since the Prime Minister took office. Now, again, we keep hearing about scenarios about our unemployment. Now, Australia is thankfully in a scenario where we have had relatively low unemployment for a long period of time. But guess what? The expectations from the Treasurer in the greatest budget of all time is that unemployment will increase and 140,000 people will lose their jobs. And this is the sort of thing that now appears in the Sunday newspapers. Remember when the Sunday newspapers were about celebrities getting married or tips on fashion or home renovation? Well, now, to entertain people on the weekend, it's ways workers can reduce their risk of being made redundant amid recession fears. So the Prime Minister might be fine with the front end of the plane and the CEO class might be clapping him on, the media might be giggling that Sky News primetime is focused on the wrong issues. You could ignore it because it's the media that they don't tuck into bed each and every night. But the reality is that millions of people are hurting while these people are laughing. They're laughing because they think that there's no political consequences, that their lies don't matter, that you're too stupid to notice that what was promised to you was a better life before the last election is now a worse life a third of their way into their first term. Now, the trial and difficulty for the opposition is they actually have to not just point at the problem, but start to offer solutions of their own. But make no mistake, it didn't have to be like this. Peter Malinauskas, when he was running to become the South Australian Premier on a trajectory of almost inevitable victory, he didn't buy into the cost of living promise that Albo offered. What is particularly nasty about the way that they weaponised cost of living during an election campaign is how they now run away from it when they have responsibility to help you. Can they wave a magic wand? No. But they promised it would be better, and it's worse. They promised your power bills will be cheaper. They get more expensive by the day. They promised greater transparency, but the entire operation and the way they are defending an obvious liar are the tests. Tests that they should be forced to pass. Tests that they should be held accountable for. Tests that we will continue to talk about when the crazy stuff happens at night.